pleasure to be here today. And I first would like to thank Jill and Doug and Tiffany and the whole BI team for the invitation to share some thoughts and ideas with you on positively impacting pig performance and care. And so a fun topic for me to venture into because a big share of my working day is spent on data and technical terms and terminology and analyzing performance data. And this is more of a bigger, broader view, more of a chance to give some theories and thoughts and opinions on this topic. And so nothing that you're going to find really, I don't think, earth-shaking or different, but just sometimes to take a step back and look at some of the changes in our industry and changes in the production methods and what we can do to continuously make our systems better. I've had the opportunity and the good fortune of working with so many good people in our industry. The leaders, the veterinarians, the practitioners, and other producers in the U.S. and Canada and Central South America and Europe, and learn from them. I don't have a whole lot of information I come up with. Most stuff you glean from others, and you learn to work with people that have produced results over their lifetimes in their careers. Our history, my history, grew up on a family farm with dairy and some pigs seasonally and in and out, very little pig production and crop production. So grew up in a traditional family farm, and some of the philosophies I have are probably a result of being in a dairy farm where one calf is a big deal. You don't talk about litters of calves, you talk about one, and saving every calf is a big deal. Really my premise today is going to be that we can't be content with producing at the level we produce at as far as efficiencies when we operate in the upper Midwest, simply by having the advantage of inexpensive feedstuffs and access to multiple markets as our strong point. We have to have that, which is a great advantage, and have the utmost attention to herd health and performance and production to be highly competitive. We listen to Brett's numbers and analysis of the changing dynamics of pork production in the world. We have to be competitive. It's a bit scary looking at what's coming up in the short term. And to produce pigs and not be competitive in the next, anytime, but especially would appear in the next year or two, is not a good proposition. So a lot of these slides I put together for either training for our employees, and sometimes you'll see them in a couple languages. I just didn't have a chance to change some of those, but some for a meeting I did in Poland here a year ago. But in the U.S., where the corn is pretty much where the pigs are and will be. It's a huge advantage. And the disadvantage of that is that where the pigs are, they're primarily we're becoming a very hog-dense region of production. And think about, since 2007, we have circovirus, we have PED, we have Seneca Valley virus, we have continually, we're seeing new and more virulent strains of PRRS. It was only a few years ago the 184 was the bad PRRS. Now that seems like the weak sister of the group. Now there's the 174, the 134 you hear about walking about the show yesterday. And so there's more challenges now in raising pigs, and we have to find ways, I believe, to offset that disadvantage of health in hog-dense areas such in the regions we work in. And the pig has changed genetically, and there's not a lot of forgiveness in a pig bred to be a high-performance pig compared to even 20 years ago. I look back to the early 2000s, 14, 16 years ago. We commingled 7 sources of pigs, probably 3 to 5 of them at any time being PRRS positive. And I remember a year in which we closed out all nursery closeouts under 1% mortality. And now you've got single source flows with the PRRS during a PRRS break, and you can see 5, 6, 7, 8% nursery mortalities. So we've changed some of the dynamics of our production. This is one of our breeding herds in southern Minnesota, and just updated it a couple of weeks ago. The red lines are pigs with 6 miles or less from the site. The yellow lines are a touch over, 6.2, 6.5, 7, etc. And so how do we produce pigs efficiently and maintain health in areas in which you are surrounded? In this case, I believe my count came up to 75,000 pigs within 6 miles. We have a unit south of there, southeast of there, about 40 miles. That count was 110,000 within 6 miles. This site has 2 of them that are within 1.5 miles. There's 6,000 head finishing. And so that's the challenges that we face. This is typical of what we see for pressure. Our South Dakota farm was negative from 2000 to 2011 and got it negative about 6 months later, and 38 days ago it broke again. I've been there 6 times in the last 2 weeks overseeing the contracting crew to filter the farm. Economic forces don't like a vacuum, and in South Dakota, when the corn was 20 cents under Sleepy, Minnesota, and Sleepy, Minnesota is 35 cents under Columbus, Nebraska, and there's a new pork plant going in Sioux City, which is about 90 miles from that sow farm of ours in South Dakota. There will be more finishing in southeast South Dakota. So we need the health of the breeding herd must be protected. I need to produce a PRRS negative pig, Mycoplasma pneumonia negative pig, and wean robust, healthy, uniform groups of pigs. Mycoplasma pneumonia, we have spent the last 4 years in elimination, eradication of Mycoplasma pneumonia from the breeding herds. We have one in the being in the tail end of the closure. The next one will hopefully start within the next 2 months, and all 14 breeding herds will be Mycoplasma negative. We have to be able to control those diseases over which we have control. Flus and some of the bacterials, less so. PRRS, we have some tools, but less so. If we learn from the leaders in this industry, Dr. Paul Yeski and others, get it done. Why not take that advantage and use it? So the value of that negative pig is tremendous. When Miguel talked about reducing antibiotic use, Mycoplasma pneumonia would be on the top of that list. As far as needing antibiotics to control that pathogen. In our production meetings every other Wednesday morning, with our team in wean finish and sow farms, we don't talk about the PRRS negative flows. We don't talk about, in grow finish, the Mycoplasma negative flows. We talk about the Mycoplasma positives back in the last 3 years when the GDUs had instability, and therefore the finishing flow. So that has to be my goal, making that negative pig. So we do have a tool, and we spent the last 6 years now, probably 7 coming up, that we filtered our first 2 farms, and 5 on the next 2, and 4 on the next 2. Doing the South Dakota farm now. A couple in Nebraska that were partial filtered, which I'm not a big fan of that. There's too much time in which that farm is susceptible when you're not filtered. So it's a large investment. We need to make it better. We need to make it even more successful than it has been. And that is our tool in our world in southern Minnesota and eastern Nebraska, eastern South Dakota, to protect and maintain the health of that breeding herd. Biosecurity, with or without filtration, biosecurity is so important, so key. And I believe we get sloppy at times, and then we have a wake-up call. We have that shot over the bow of May of 2013, reminding us of the importance of biosecurity. Example, this PED PCR result is when I took a sample and it came back positive. Our South Dakota farm, Kaler farm, broke February 12th of 2014 with PED. It's the only case we had in our system. And I was walking past the desk of our receptionist, and there was an envelope from Todd, our manager, and with whatever he sends in, invoices and expense reports and so on. And just out of curiosity, I swabbed the envelope and the contents inside of it from a farm from 250 miles from our office. And yes, it was positive for PED virus coming through the mail. So details of biosecurity are important. We did some of the, when we sent 3 guys out to that farm to respond to that PED and parked the pickup and trailer off-site for the next 2 weeks. It was cold, winter to February. Came back and swabbed those seats and the clothing inside there 2 weeks later and find it positive PED. Those are the, there's real risks, and it's constant reinforcement to the staff and the management, but it's so important. Internal biosecurity, this is a big topic for me. It wasn't that many years ago, all farms were batch farms, and all the little pigs left the farm, and all those little issues went with them. Now, it's interesting to me how the industry, there's a mini movement, I'd say, at this point in the U.S. of batch farrowing to control flu, to control PRRS, to get over PED quicker, to get over PRRS quicker. But then we went to farrowing on different ends of the farm. We'd have 2 batches and have that separation. And then we moved to continuous weekly weanings, daily weanings, washing the room, reloading, and have newborn pigs next to 20-day-old pigs. And sometimes we have to think at a different level to create the problem that we caused in the first place. So we wash these rooms with a pressure washer with sometimes maybe hot water to warm, with hard water, in our area, very hard water, with maybe some detergent or maybe not. And my question to the farm staff is, if you went and washed your dishes at home with hard, cold water and put them back in the cupboard, would you want to use them the next day? Probably not. When there's no issues on the farm, we don't see problems, that means there's probably nothing in the stuff to cause a problem. When there is, you have to go the next step, and we've done this. We've done it seasonally on farms that have been going along okay, just to knock that load, that level of exposure down. And so you bring in the crews, and you go back to the old-fashioned way of cleaning a farrowing house. If you don't, you bring the last group's problems and challenges back to the new group. So it's an area that it's often overlooked, and an area that you have to pour the labor to it, I believe, at times to make a difference. We talk about impacting the performance of the pig and the pig care. It's the simple things at times that, as farms have grown in size, that have been overlooked. Jill and I have gone through, and with Dr. Wetzel and others, through our farms, and just do reminders and short courses on the quality of injections, of iron, of vaccines, and so on. Visiting with a practitioner just yesterday, using some serology work, that he found that about half of the pigs were probably getting inside the pig, probably the PRRS vaccine. That doesn't positively impact the performance of the pig if half of our pigs are being vaccinated. If something as simple as an iron supplement isn't getting in correctly. So I'll challenge the managers to walk through the farrowing house at least twice a month in detail, look at each iron injection on a sample of pigs. It's too important to overlook. That individual pig care, are we looking at the pigs from a room level, a litter level, or a pig level? And if we say the room looks good, look at the litter. If the litter looks good, look at the pig. We've got to get back to that level of individual care constantly. Transporting the piglet in a trailer that's clean and comfortable. Again, 2013 in PD was a wake-up call for us as Schwartz Farms, for the industry in general. When you realize how fast that virus got from those first couple sites, and then we heard about it, I think it was May 15th or 20th, whatever that date was, and you realize how quickly that virus moved around the entire nation. We had a closeout barn, where the pigs that aren't ready for market from multiple barns go into that to get them to market weight. And I think it was the last days of May, came back, the supervisor said they were off feed, they were terrible diarrhea, came back PD positive. And so within 2 weeks, we had us in a closeout barn. The link was the trucker took a small lot load, a trailer load of market pigs to the plant, came back to that finishing barn, picked up the tail end pigs, took them to the closeout barn. Fortunately, the finishing barn wasn't positive, but he drug it back into the closeout barn. So trailer wash, truck wash, we invested, which I had pushed for a number of years in a more formalized, yes?
So you have to, each transport of the pigs on this trailer, the trailer has to be clean each time they go to well or barn?
After every load, correct. Yep.
Okay, I saw that at Cargill one time in Iowa.
Yep.
Each trailer load, hogs came in, they got a wash bay out there, it goes through a wash bay system. Okay.
Yep, correct.
I saw it at the time. Okay.
Yep. And this is the drying bay, high speed, high temp, which I believe is critical. But so we learned a lot. We were really, really bad at this. We have to, as an industry, get so much better at this. We've made a stride. I believe, which I'm working on now also, our South Dakota farm sits out 200 miles from everything else, and my theory is let the wean pig hauler and the cull sow hauler, who now wash, and we have a kind of a mishmash of not a system, I won't even call it that. Let them wash where they're going to wash, but construct just the high temp, high speed baking bay somewhere near our farm, and they go wash in a commercial wash, but then do it right on this stage. That's what we need out there. It's 5,000 sows. I believe, and we've washed every market pig truck since I believe it was the fall of 2007. And a lot of bad things are going to happen. It's going to happen coming back from probably a slaughter plant or a buying station. Fall of 2007 was Thanksgiving weekend. Dr. Jerry Torreson was at the U of M diagnostic lab, called me, kind of strange, called me at 7 o'clock at night. He said, we got TG off one of your finishing sites. We had 5 sites within 2 weeks that after topping off the first load of market pigs, there was some looseness in the market in the rest of the pigs. Took a sample, found to be TG. We weaned back into those sites 5 days later. We're not going to get those sites clean from TG in 30-degree weather, and it didn't. So we switched them into a finishing site. Finishing pig, or the feeder pigs came in at 50 pounds, and 4 days later we got TG. That happened 5 times. Started washing the trucks after every market load. Have not had one since. The slaughter plant, the buying stations are the link, and my question is always, TG is pretty noticeable. What are we dragging back that we don't know? Back to the next group of wean pigs. So that's my macro view, my theories, my opinions on that, on having a positive impact on our performance of our pigs. At the micro level is the again, impacting in a positive way the care of the pigs, and that starts at birth. The 24-hour farrowing house attendance, that's something I've dabbled in, trying to extend hours out for the attendance for going on 10 years, and you'd have someone that I could get to work from 4 p.m. till midnight, and then they get tired of that shift, and then we'd be back to the normal 8-9 hour days. When live-born was 10.5 pigs a litter, and there's 14 teats, life was pretty good for about 92% of the pigs. Now live-born is 14s and 13s and 15s on some of the herds on 14 teats, of which 12 might be functioning adequately to support the pig. And so it's changed. And again, we need to think at a different level from the one at which we were using when we created the problem in the first place, or the situation. Not a problem, it's an opportunity. So it goes back to, again, that every pig matters, that mentality from the dairy side of me as a kid is that you'd go out and check a cow that was calving at midnight or 2 in the morning, or you get up at 4 in the morning and check the cow and help her out and assist if need be. So I pushed for this and encouraged this in our system, and so July of 13, 3 years ago, I had Dr. Larry Coleman and 2 of his key employees, Tim and Jose, come up, met with our management team, met with our farm managers, and talked about their experience. And I have the highest respect and admiration for Dr. Coleman and his passion in which he goes about his work and the humility with which he does it. And so Larry talked about the difficulties and the pitfalls and so on. And it's far easier to remain with the status quo. And so we talked all the reasons that it may not work. It's one person by themselves at night in the sow farm, and the turnover or potential for it, which there is. And how do you train a person coming in that may have 0 experience? How long do they spend on the day shift before they go to night shift? It was brought up that we just tell people, hey, a lot of people's work shifts, you guys can work shifts. I said, no, we'll have no one here. They don't want to work shifts. If they did, they'd be at the plant working shifts, probably somewhere else in town. And so there's lots of reasons we could come up with not to do it, and I kept pushing, and we did, and we agreed, and we took the plunge and made the commitment. We measure everything in terms of efficiency of the success of a farm, the pigs per sow, and throughput, and the pre-wean, and 24-hour care is not always the most efficient. There's nights, and especially on the 2,500 sow farms, in which they're not real busy. In fact, our turnover is higher in the 2,500s than the 5,000s. I believe it's too many nights it's slow. There's nothing worse than watching the clock. You'd rather be busy. And so all these, and so we've done it now 3 years. Stillbirth rate was cut in half. It was immediate. Pre-wean mortality has been slower. My friend Juan Carlos will say at PIC, if you have kind of an average or mediocre day shift, you're going to have kind of a mediocre night shift. It's not going to be a lot better. So get the day shift going, so you're training, you're working. To me, if we could get the whys of these basic processes of pig care and impacting that positively to the farrowing staff, they'll figure out the hows. Pigs get exhausted and lethargic at birth with the delayed colostrum intake. The pig at birth, at 24 hours of age, and this is PIC data. I thank them for their work and sharing this. A pig that took in 3/4 pound of colostrum was a weaned pig. A pig that took in 1/3 of a pound was not. A pig that lost weight in the first 24 hours did not make a pig. It gained 1/4 pound, it made a weaned pig. This, if his body temperature was 100, it was weaned. If it was 98, it was not. The longer it takes before they nurse, the lower the temperature gets. They get down here, they're not going to make a weaned pig. The smaller the pig is, the longer it takes to nurse. Which pigs you can work on? The small pigs, because they take longer to nurse. If we could teach that to the crew, they'll figure out how, and that's the challenge of getting it done every day. So if we're going to give the best care for that pig at birth. We get it started. We help the sow. We assist her in farrowing. We get a shorter farrowing process. She feels better. Then we have to make sure we're caring for that pig throughout. We've provided a comfortable environment for both the piglet and the sow, and that gets tricky. We want her to give lots of milk to make this a nice big pig. Again, I go back to the importance of keeping her comfortable and making milk. As a kid, we always milked about 50 cows every day. This is my brother John, by the way. He never liked that job. I don't know who took his picture, but probably wasn't me. We milked in January and February. We had to wait for the milk truck to come to milk the last 10 cows. In July and August, when it was hot, there was like this much room left, and we're still milking 50 cows. We forget about that on pigs. The more milk, more feed, more milk, bigger pig, a better pig to pass on to wean finish. So important. And reducing the variation in those pigs by optimizing milk output and comfort environment for that sow. So simple, but so important to get it done. And so you got to put all these pieces together. You look at the processes and the people involved. And one thing that I use a term frequently is farms got bigger to be more efficient use of overhead, of management. We filled barns quicker. We filled up the truckload of pigs. You're hauling pigs, whether it's 1,000 or 500. It's still one driver. All those reasons for economies of scale. And we have to make sure we don't create these diseconomies of scale as farms get bigger. That people don't forget to talk to each other and communicate, and don't forget those simple tasks that have to get done. And so we take a sow that's properly conditioned into a clean farrowing stall that's set up correctly for the success of that pig and the sow. We're attending the farrowing event, getting the pigs out warm, dried with a belly full of colostrum, assisting the sow as needed to help her out, getting the intake maximized for all the pigs to make sure the small ones are getting colostrum so we're not increasing variability in wean weight. We're getting the pig moved in a clean trailer that's at the proper temperature for the time of year, and we're getting the pig placed into a clean nursery. And so all those steps to impact in a positive manner the performance of that pig. Whether it's in the farrowing phase, whether it's in the wean finish phase or the grow finish phase, to step back and say, what are we trying to do? We're trying to produce robust, quality pigs at weaning and throughout into the process of marketing those pigs. And to begin with the end in mind, and to take that every day and make sure we're completing those simple processes. One last thought on that as you talk about pig care and enhancing that. I think society just likes to like complexity. Everything's got to be complicated, and there's a lot of things in our world are complicated. It's changed drastically in the last. It just increases at an increasing rate. This is a PRRS dendrogram from Dr. Mike Murtaugh, and it's pretty complex. It's my world. A lot of the work and the data and the analysis and so on. It gets to be complex, but caring for that pig at birth isn't a real complicated deal. How do we train the employees to see those really basic things by nature? And I keep repeating as we talk about training and pig care and enhancing that. Daughter number 3 there, it was probably a year ago, it was a year ago when her and her friend, they love coming to the farm. My question is why can a 9-year-old with no training, 0 days, 0 minutes of training, and they'll be running around the farrowing house that Saturday morning, and they come running over, Dad, that pig can't get up with the rest of the litter. It can't get any milk. What do we do? What can we do for that pig? That one looks cold. And that's what they did. Figure out on their own to find a syringe of some sort. It's not a really complicated process in so many aspects. And if I could make, we need documentation of our processes and process verification, and which is important. That's the world we're in. Everything has to be documented. If I could make a standard operating procedure for the day one pig care employees, I think there's a department store had this, but it was at all times, under all circumstances, do what's best for the pig and the litter. Theirs ended differently than mine, but that's what we're at. I mean, how else could you train that? Yeah, there's more steps when you're talking about sow treatment, and we temp each sow after their farrows and what we do for the sow if she has a fever of 103, and those things obviously. But really when it comes down to the care of the pig, it's not a real complicated process. How do we make that an easier process? And that performance is a people topic. There's the science of the knowing the baking of the trailers and the cleaning and the disinfection, but so much of it is caring for that pig. And we have to make sure we give the employees the right tools to get the job done in that manner, whether it's the proper tubs and the towels and the comfortable clothing and so on. Again, it's teach the why things occur, and they'll figure out the how. So we have to be continuously focusing on that. Health status, especially in regard to PRRS and mycoplasma pneumonia, are key. And I have to continue to focus on creating and maintaining a production system to produce the healthy, robust pigs that are competitive in our world and within our company.